What is up, y'all? Welcome to Technical Foul. You're here with Jack Anderson, and to my right you have JP Pusilowski,
What's up, guys?
and to my left Sanders Oakley.
What's up, guys?
Before we really get started into the show, we just want to run over some housekeeping stuff, how the pod's going to work down the line, and some stuff like that. First, if you've been tuning in the past couple shows, it's been basically all about college basketball. We just want to clarify this is not a college basketball pod. We're just going to talk about all sports, mainly what is interesting to us at the time or what is the most relevant in the sports world at the time. And we happen to start right before March Madness started. So just kind of the big thing at the time. That's why it's been the biggest focus of our pod. But as this wraps up, we'll go maybe more into NBA and MLB, stuff like that, college baseball.
NFL draft.
Sanders really wants to do some NFL draft stuff. I'm sure
very
we'll do
excited.
that.
Yeah, looking ahead at the next episodes, we got we'll update March Madness. We'll talk about our MLB division picks. We'll do some more March Madness, and then eventually we'll get to we'll react to the National Player of the Year that we predicted. And then I'm gonna break down the Masters, and we're gonna have a guest come in and break down the NHL playoffs, and then we'll talk about the NBA playoffs. So a lot of good sports coming up. We're about to enter a very prime 3 months before the darkness of summer sports.
Yeah.
So
See, it's not the darkness of summer sports if you love MLB.
I guess that's fair.
But there is definitely less going on. But yeah, we just wanted y'all to know that we will be hitting other stuff, and we'll have varying levels of expertise on the different topics. But just stick around for all of it. It should be a good time. A couple other things we want to hit on. One, Will Wade just got hired by NC State about an hour and a half before we started recording. Just for reference, it's 3:30 on Monday right now. Personally, I think it's a pretty good hire.
It's Wednesday. It is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday. I apologize. It is Wednesday. That's awkward
We're about to
for
start
me.
predicting the future. Will Wade. This is recorded Monday. Will Wade hired on Wednesday. I'm gonna guess that.
Anyway, it is Wednesday. I apologize. Pretty good hire. It's interesting. Will Wade is about a coach. Do they play Thursday or Friday?
They play Friday.
His team is still in March Madness, but he's gone
No,
ahead
they
and
play
taken-
tomorrow. They
Okay.
play tomorrow.
They play tomorrow, but he's gone ahead and taken the job. Makes sense. It's a good move for him. He's kind of back in the Power Four after his fallout at LSU. And then another thing of note, if you watched our March Madness special, we had San Diego State making a bit of a run.
Rip.
They got demolished last night, but we're sticking with UNC to make that run in their stead.
Mhm.
So shout out UNC. I guess we're pulling for you for a couple rounds. All right, y'all want to go ahead and get into it?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to kick it off with we're going to give y'all all three of our Elite Eights, and then like work through them, go Elite Eight, Final Four, National Championship game, and we'll give you our champions. We'll go one by one. I'll go and kick it off. In the South region, I have Michigan versus Michigan State in my Elite Eight. And then in the West, I have Florida, Texas Tech. And then in the East, I have Duke, Alabama. And then in the Midwest, I have Houston, Kentucky. So that's my Elite Eight. I'll go ahead and give you my Final Four. I have Michigan State beating Michigan. Tom Izzo reaches another Final Four and a big rivalry win. I have Texas Tech beating Florida. I love this Texas Tech team. JT Toppin, a bunch of shooters. I think they could get hot and knock off Florida, who is arguably the hottest team in the country right now. I have Duke beating Alabama. Duke's a wagon, most talented team in the country. And then I have Houston beating Kentucky, reaching the Final Four. And then in the Final Four, I have Texas Tech beating Michigan State, reaching another national championship. They did it in, was it 2018, 2019?
2019.
2019, when they lost to
Virginia.
UVA in a close-fought game, went to overtime. And then I have Duke beating Houston. And then in my finals, Duke versus Texas Tech. It'll be a pretty close game, I think, but I have Duke getting it done. Cooper Flagg brings the title back to Duke and gets to go off into the NBA draft, kind of a legend there at Duke. Any reactions? I know what Sanders is about to bring up, so I'm going to make you sit on it for a second. JP, any reactions?
Michigan State. That's very similar to what we picked as a group, so I don't mind that whatsoever. I mean, you got Houston coming out of the Midwest. What were your picks there? I assume you had them beating Gonzaga.
I had them beating
Clemson,
Gonzaga,
Purdue,
and then I had them beating Clemson.
and then they would
Not
play
Purdue,
Tennessee.
and then they'd play Kentucky.
Okay, play
So that
Kentucky.
Kentucky
Okay.
beating Tennessee.
Yeah, you're right.
Kentucky beat Tennessee both times in the regular season. Obviously, they're a little beat up, but I think honestly the Midwest is a pretty gross region, especially that bottom half, and
Mhm.
so kind of someone had to emerge. I don't really trust Rick Barnes in Tennessee in March. They do have a very good defensive team, and Chasleneer can hit shots. So Kentucky just kind of found their way into the Elite Eight for me. But yeah. Okay, Sanders, you can say what you want to say.
Where's Maryland?
What do you mean, where's Maryland?
3 days ago, y'all had me over here squirming in my seat as I watched y'all pick Maryland for the national championship, beating both Florida and Duke. And now you're over here saying, yeah, Florida's going to have to win in that game. Where was this Sunday?
Well, I mean, I think that is going to be a very close game. I think Maryland can, play with Florida, get up and down a little bit with Florida, match up well with Florida. I'm interested to see what Derek Queen can do against the length of Florida. I think it'll be a big kind of test, NBA draft stock test in scouts' eyes, if he can kind of handle that.
Sure.
I think he could. Time will tell. But I think it's a coin flip, and just for my own personal bracket, I decided to go with Florida. In terms of like trying to make a safer bracket, a more projectable bracket, Florida made a little more sense in that regard, so I went with Florida. Partially also knowing that don't ask me why, I really have just fallen in love with this Texas Tech team, so I kind of knew Texas Tech was going to make it out of that region regardless in my personal bracket. So
you
that's
just
kinda why.
cooked the group and left me over here dying.
In the moment of Sunday night,
In the moment, it was crab five.
and I'm
Players
still
averaging over 12 points a game. It's just
no.
they're the best team in the country.
I still love the Crab Five. I love Maryland. It's a great group. But yeah, and I also just once again I love Maryland. They got a rough draw like every game. Grand Canyon's not an easy first round
Correct.
matchup. If Memphis beats Colorado State, if Colorado State wins, that's a tough 5 or a 12 to play. They just have a tough, and then they roll into Florida if they win those 2 games. It's a very tough road for them to just keep winning, and they could. They're great, but once again, try to be a little safer with it in that regard.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't see where the problem is, Sanders, to be honest.
He's just salty.
Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit. Because I've had people come up to me and say, "Wow, I can't believe y'all picked Maryland." I'm like, I didn't pick Maryland. I fought tooth and nail to have Maryland lose twice.
You didn't really do much fighting, to be honest.
Well, I guess it was
Not much you
there
could
wa-
do.
Yeah, there's not much I could do.
Yeah, it was out of your control.
Oh, I should have gone back in at the end and just vetoed their first round. That would have been funny. That would have been really
It was
funny.
too late. You
was
had
too
no
late.
idea what
It was-
was to be cooked
I
up. I had no idea
I had
the
no
first
idea
round.
either.
Okay, it was spur of the moment. But yeah, I'll just once again to cap mine off before we roll to the next. My final 4 is Michigan State versus Texas Tech on one side, and Duke versus Houston on the other side. And then I have Duke beating Texas Tech in the finals. It almost feels like if you didn't pick Duke and they won the whole thing, I'd be sitting there going, I was really stupid not to pick Duke. Like, I should have known. We've heard all along how good this team are, and the metrics love this team. They're the most talented. So just went ahead and locked that one in. And I'm not really a Duke fan. I'm typically a Duke hater, but I do kind of like this Duke team a little bit. I really like watching them play.
Yeah, the last Duke team that was like this was the Zion, Cam Reddish,
Yeah.
RJ Barrett team, but I think a huge piece with them was just the lack of, besides Cam Reddish, the lack of 3-point shooting
Yep.
and scoring ability out of their stars. RJ Barrett was a rim slasher and a passer. Zion obviously with the big dunks and everything. It's different with this Duke team. I think Cooper Flagg is just a substantial piece to this team. He's a terrific scorer. He can score on all 3 levels, and he's got a good cast along with him. So I like the Duke pick. I'm probably gonna end up picking Duke here in a second, which I am, by the way.
I was going to say, we can roll right into yours 'cause you're next on the list. So give us your Elite 8 and Final 4.
Yeah,
champion.
absolutely. My Elite 8, I have the 8 seed Louisville facing Michigan State, coming out of the South region. I have Florida and Texas Tech as well. I have Duke versus John Tonje and
Shout out
Wisconsin.
CT, by the way.
Yes, shout out CT. And Clemson and Kentucky for my Elite 8 out of the Midwest. I have Louisville beating Auburn in the second round. Louisville is one of those teams that was significantly underseeded. I mean, they finished, They finished in the top 10 in that last AP poll.
Yeah.
Besides Gonzaga, they're one of the most underseeded teams based on KenPom. Gonzaga would be a 3 seed on Kim Palm, and Louisville would be a 6 seed, so underseeded by 2 seeds. And now they have to play as an 8 seed, and then they have to play the number 1 seed if they win. That's
Yeah.
just extremely unfortunate for Louisville, given the year they had.
Not to interrupt, the scene when they get unveiled as the 8 seed, and you can see Pat Kelsey front and center. He's holding up his fingers. He's looking around. He just cannot believe he's like an 8.
Yeah.
It summed it up perfectly.
So I think they're going to play with a big chip on their shoulder. I know we picked Creighton on Sunday. That'll be a toss-up, and then I think if they can come out at a win in that Creighton game, with the way Auburn's played recently, who's to say they can't win that game? And then I have them reaching the Elite Eight because I have double upset. I have UC San Diego and Yale beating Michigan and A&M. So I have Louisville over UC San Diego in the Sweet 16. So that's how Louisville reaches the Elite Eight. I got Tom Izzo as well there. And then I go for my Final Four. I have Michigan State, Florida, Duke, Clemson. We get a rematch between the one team in the ACC that beat Duke this season in the Final Four. I got Duke to win that matchup in the rematch. And then I got Florida to beat Michigan State. And I have Florida versus Duke. And I'm going with Duke here. I think Florida's playing, a really, really hot stretch. And it's usually good to come into March Madness playing your best and playing as a hot team. And obviously Duke with the Cooper Flag injury, you have questions there. But I think over the course of 2.5 weeks, I think we're going to see a flip here. I think Florida's going to come down a little bit, and we'll see Duke, assuming they'll have Cooper Flag 100% by then, rise back up to the top and play at the level that they do. In the latest Kim Palm rankings, they are the 1, Florida's the 2. And their difference in net rating is a substantial 2.03 points, which is it's a substantial difference. It's the difference between Texas Tech and St. John's, the 7 and 12, and Kim Palm. So this is not just like 1A, 1B. Kim Palm kind of views it as 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So I got Duke beating Florida in my national championship in San Antonio here in about 2.5 weeks.
San Antonio, Texas.
Yes, not California, Sanders. I like it. I agreed. Picking Louisville to make a run, the Clemson game looms large because it's just a very scary first-round matchup with Creighton having Ryan Kalkbrenner. So that could, and its first game of the tournament, that could blow up early.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily hate it.
I don't really like Clemson's matchup against Houston. I just feel like Clemson is too inconsistent as opposed to Houston, which is the opposite of inconsistent.
Well, that's what I was about to ask. Do you have Gonzaga?
I have
Clemson beating
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga, thank you.
Gonzaga.
Defeating
Oh.
Houston.
Okay.
And then I got Clemson beating Gonzaga.
I feel like Clemson's
Okay.
honestly pretty consistent as a team. I mean, they have a lot of veteran presence.
That's fair.
They didn't really lose games they're not supposed to. Now, obviously, if they did match up against Clemson or Gonzaga maybe even could be favored in that game. I don't know. But that's not necessarily a game they're supposed to win. So it is a different story. But, I mean, besides the Georgia Tech game, did they really lose one that they weren't?
They're a team that I think as long as they don't match up with two ends in the spectrum, the one end being the Houston, the team that plays really slow and efficiently, versus the other end, Alabama, that plays really, really fast and shoots the three a bunch.
Yeah.
They match up really well with anyone. I mean, beating Duke is a statement, whether
sure.
wet court conspiracy or not. Not a lot of teams have done that, and I think Clemson, if Gonzaga can defeat Houston and they avoid that matchup, I think they match up well with Gonzaga.
Yeah.
And that would be Gonzaga reaching the Sweet 16 again. So
Yeah.
Mark Few already checks that off. Now he's allowed to lose after he's reached the Sweet 16. So I think I got Clemson winning that matchup.
Yeah, that makes I like that a lot more than Clemson Houston. So
Yeah.
that's
I-
and Gonzaga Houston. I could see that being an upset.
I trust Clemson not to really get blown out and like find themselves in the last minutes of every game. I don't necessarily know how much I love them to close games consistently. So I guess that is a question, but I do like it. Do you feel like Mark Few has like this overwhelming pressure to reach the Sweet 16, kind of like unfairly? I know you just kind of brought it up on a whim, but like he always does it.
Yes and no. I mean, this Gonzaga team is not Now they are ninth in KenPom, so
Yeah.
KenPom obviously thinks very highly of them, and the nation for the most part thinks highly of them as well. And they got good players, but they have underachieved this year.
For sure.
They lost to St. Mary's twice before beating them in the WCC championship. So this is a team that's typically in the WCC, they just dominate the conference.
Yeah.
They really don't lose any of those games at all. And the fact that St. Mary's gave them trouble twice this season, I think it's the pressure is definitely dialed down. This is not I think this is a better for Mark Few, being the hunter instead of the hunted in this case.
Yeah.
I think those dominant teams that have been 1 seeds and top 4 seeds, I think that's where the pressure is. When you're, playing as a 5 through 8 seed, there's a lot less pressure on you, especially if you underachieved. So I don't think the pressure will be there as much. I think the pressure is on Houston because it's 3 straight 1 seeds, and you haven't really done anything
For sure.
with it. They haven't reached the Final Four once.
Dang.
And say again?
I said dang.
Yeah, that's 3 straight 1 seeds and not reach the Final Four in one of those years. That's underachieving. I think the pressure is on Houston a ton in that game, especially, Gonzaga. There's a chance they could end up being favored in that game, depending on how the first round goes.
Yep.
So I don't think the pressure's on Mark Few as much this year to reach the Sweet 16, but I do think he'll do it, beating Houston.
I think that's fair. I mean, if he loses to Houston, he just goes, "Oh, we were the 8 seed. They were the 1. Like, what did y'all expect?"
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the only thing else I wanted to point out about yours, I don't know if you have any thoughts, Sanders, but your Florida Duke analysis, I kind of liked. Florida is playing incredibly well right now. They're so hot. It's kind of hard to imagine them doing it for
Another 2.5 weeks,
Yeah.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
yeah. I just feel like, they're going to have a game at some point where they're not quite the same. And to be fair, even if they're not playing at the same high level, they still could win because they are that good. But, I mean, time will tell.
I do think they'll have they're going to have a tough road, too. Like,
Yeah.
there's a chance they play the 2-time defending champions in UConn. They could play Oklahoma and end up losing that game. The Crab 5, very dangerous team.
Tough,
I
tough
like the Crab
matchup.
5 a lot in that game, although I didn't pick them. Texas Tech is one of the most underrated teams in the country. Rick Pitino and St. John's. While a lot of people think they'll underachieve in this tournament, there's no guarantee if they got that matchup they'd win it. And then the possibility of facing up against Tom Izzo in the Final Four or Auburn, the number 1 overall seed in the Final Four. Now you beat Auburn by 20 points in the Plains. Neither of those are easy matchups. Florida's the hottest team in the country, but they got a tough road.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a tough road. If you compare it to Duke's road, and even Auburn's road, it's night and day difference. Honestly, in my opinion.
I think Florida has the toughest road. I almost feel like
Not to mention they have to play in the West. So they're in the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, they're playing out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I don't want to speak too hastily, but I almost feel like Florida got the 2 seed I'd want to see the least, just because of how good that St. John's defense is and how good of a coach Rick Pitino is. Texas Tech would probably be the 3 seed I'd want to see the least. And then I wouldn't want to play that Maryland team either.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's going to match up well with a team that's going to play the same style as them, which is light up the scoreboard.
Yeah.
It's why they beat a team like Alabama, and even beat a team like Auburn that day. And they fare well in the SEC because there's not a lot of defensive-minded teams in the SEC for the most part. So it'll be interesting to see them compete against defensive-minded teams. Maryland, not so much, but Texas Tech, St. John's.
Yeah, I was just looking at the other quadrants of the bracket and looking at the 2 through 4 seeds, and Florida definitely got the worst draw. I mean, Auburn's got to play. I mean, Michigan State is tough, but I'm low on A&M. I'm low on Iowa State.
Whoa, low on A&M is crazy.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll talk
One
about
of,
that.
one of my friends told me last night, he was like, "Oh, I got y'all making a Final Four run," and he was like, "Y'all gonna get it done for me?" And I was like, "Honestly, no. Good luck though."
Yeah, not happening. But then you look over at the Midwest, and it's like Tennessee and Kentucky are good, but you're going to have to face one of them. And then the other seed is the 4 seed is Purdue, who they were my Big Ten picks, but
They're on a slide right now.
they are on a slide. So it's just, I do think that Florida got a very tough draw. I
Which-
expect them to come out of it on top, but it's a tough draw.
To be fair, they got the tough draw, but they are the 4th 1 seed, so
Mhm.
it doesn't really feel crazy unfair, I guess.
That is fair.
Maybe a little bit, but I mean, maybe it's to be expected in that sense.
That's true.
Any other comments on JP's?
No,
picks?
I think we have some of our picks are the same. I wish I had time to compare all 4 to see how much overlap there was, but we just finished getting ready right before the show, so we can try and dissect it after. But I do think we had some pretty common picks. We can go and move to mine. If
Sure.
That's all right. So in my Elite 8, I don't know the regions, so I go top left, bottom left, top right, bottom right. In the top left region,
The South.
the South, I have actually wait, I can open it up right here and see it. I have Louisville and Michigan State coming out of the South, which I think was the same as
It is.
JP's.
Same as mine.
In the West, I have the chalk matchup, Florida and St. John's. And then another chalk matchup coming out of the East in Duke and Alabama. And then Midwest, I have Houston and Kentucky. So then in my final 4, I have Louisville versus Florida. So I have Louisville upsetting Michigan State.
Crazy
which I don't
run.
think either of y'all did.
No.
I know.
I mean, I didn't have Louisville in the Elite 8, so.
Yeah, I'll get to Louisville in a second. I like Louisville's path a lot. As far as 8 seeds go, like getting to play Auburn, they're probably the one seed I'm lowest on. So on the other side, I have Duke versus Kentucky. So I have Kentucky getting the upset versus Houston. And that thought process was kind of maybe Kentucky's offense is enough. I mean, I think it's probably one of the better offenses Houston will have played, at least out of conference. So in conference, I doubt that anyone was as good as Kentucky. And then in my championship, I have Duke versus Florida, and I'm the only person who picked Florida to win. But JP had a Florida Duke, and you had Texas Tech Duke. So
Yeah.
there was some overlap in our brackets for sure. But
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the most surprising thing to me out of all of ours, I mean, maybe mine included, y'all could disagree with me because it's my own. Why would I be surprised about my own, obviously? I didn't expect to see, wait, now I'm tripped out. JP, I didn't realize you had Wisconsin in the Elite 8.
Correct.
Okay, so I flipped who is who. The Wisconsin thing for me surprises surprises me a little bit, just because I feel like
were they your Big Ten picks?
they were my Big Ten pick.
They were
They were
Jacks. Okay.
Sanders. Oh my gosh, can I get a name right? JP had Maryland
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
as his Big Ten favorite. Do you just like Wisconsin's path? Do you think they
I
got
think,
a good draw?
yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, Montana is one of the weaker 14 seeds, although a lot of people are putting money on Montana to cover the spread. That line has moved like 3.5 points across this week and has a chance to move even more. And then they would face BYU or VCU. If they faced VCU, it would be a tough matchup. I have them playing BYU, though.
Gotcha.
And then I have them playing Bama. And I think, it's going to be the story with all of Nate Oates' Alabama teams that shoot the 3 as much as they do.
Yeah.
Because eventually, they're just not going to shoot well in a game. And I lean Wisconsin there because of their ability to score more efficiently,
Yep.
and not rely on the 3 ball as much. So I that would be the spot where I'm like, okay, Alabama finally doesn't shoot well,
That's where they lose.
and
makes
they
sense.
lose because they didn't shoot well. So that's why I have Wisconsin in my
Gotcha.
Elite 8.
I don't necessarily hate it. I think it just surprised me a little bit. But yeah, sorry not to hop back to JP and leaving
No,
the
you
dust
good.
Sanders.
We did kind of miss that entirely.
Yeah, I don't know how. I think I just got confused whose bracket I was looking at. But yeah, I mean, Sanders, yours is. I mean, it makes sense, I guess. I am a little surprised just how much love Louisville's getting overall, not just from y'all two, but just kind of countrywide.
Sure.
I think I'm just lower on them than everyone else, basically. I think they, in my opinion, I'm worried they might have taken advantage of just an easier ACC, and they're still a good team, but they're not actually the level of team that could make this kind of Elite 8 or Final 4 run in Sanders' case.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
I don't think I've talked to a single person who has. So I mean, while you're not as high on Louisville, I don't think I have a single person who has Auburn getting out of the round of 32. Everyone is like they're either Creighton or Louisville is getting the upset.
I have them getting out of the round of 3.
Really, and then losing.
Losing to Michigan.
Okay.
Um,
So it's just while I think that kind of surprised me is, well, between the 3 of us and then between everyone I've talked to, how little excitement there is around the number 1 overall seed.
I think it's twofold. I think one, they are clearly playing like the worst one seed right now.
Mhm.
They could turn it around, but I do think it's a lot easier said than done to turn it around once you've kind of lost your top gear. And also don't think anyone really likes Auburn.
Fair.
Everyone's happy that they kind of have an excuse to not have to pick Auburn into their Final Four. Just whole like no one really likes Chad Baker-Mazara, Janai Broom. A lot of people aren't really big Bruce Pearl fans. So the fact that they aren't playing great is like perfect. Now I can feel like reasonable in having them lose pretty early, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think a big thing for them is they just play. They play with a ton of moxie,
Yeah.
but they feel like front runners to me. If they're in a
Yeah.
lead and they can dominate a game from the tip off to the final whistle, then it's all them. But I think in an event they get behind or start to struggle, that's where I question them a lot. Watching the Alabama game, the second one in Auburn, that was a big story. That game was just they couldn't continue trading punches with Alabama, and eventually Alabama got the knockout with Mark Sears' floater to win it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, very similar with this team, like I did with the 2018-2019 Duke team, the Zion, Cam Reddish, R.J. Barrett Duke team. A lot of my doubt going to the tournament was they're going to get the best shot from everybody in every single game. And I wonder, do they have the consistency to trade punches with everybody?
Yeah.
Janai Broom is a wonderful scorer, but he's not a consistent scorer in terms of go get a basket, he'll get it for you. Now, he's made some big shots. He made some big shots in the Alabama game. He made some big shots in the SEC tournament. But I think a big thing for them is the lack of a guard going
Sure.
to and getting a big shot. Kelly isn't necessarily a big-time shooter. Chad Baker-Mazara likes to shoot in the clutch for whatever reason. Pettiford's only a freshman. And Denver Jones is more of a defender than he is a scorer.
Yeah.
So
True point guard type.
I wonder, in a tight game, will Auburn collapse similar to the way they did to Yale last year?
Yeah.
Just against better competition, whether that be a Louisville, Michigan State.
I think that's fair. I'm also talking about them playing with a lot of moxie. It's kind of like it's the tournament. You're going to reach a point where all the teams are playing with that same kind of moxie, and that no longer becomes a leg up, really.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Sanders, on that point? Or are we ready to move on to Cinderella's?
No, I think we're going to move on to Cinderella's.
Sure, I'm done.
All right. For Cinderella's, we kept it pretty simple. We all chose a double-digit seed that we're going to make a case for to make the Sweet 16. I'll go ahead and go first. I have VCU. They don't actually really feel crazy Cinderella-y. JP was kind of kidding with me before the show. He's like, VCU's not a Cinderella. I kind of have to agree. I mean, they have the mid-major stamp on them, so that and they have the double-digit seed stamp as well. But they're 30th in KenPom. They play really good defense. They cruise through the A10, which is not the easiest conference. It's obviously no Power Forward conference, but there's some good teams. George Mason's pretty good. Dayton has always got a good team. I think they went 15-3 in that conference. They won their conference tournament pretty easily. They got a couple of big-time players, and Max Scholga can hit big shots. They limit the three. They force turnovers. They're not the best shooting team, but they crash the offensive boards. They get about 13 a game, which is a pretty good number. A lot of people are on this pick, honestly, which makes me a little worried about it because, I don't know. I always feel like a lot of times the favorite Cinderella's crash and burn, and it's always someone you don't expect.
Yeah.
But also, in terms of them making the Sweet 16, I don't really love their draw, to be honest. You get one of the hottest teams in the country off rip in BYU, who shoots the three ball really well. So it's going to be, a contrast of styles, which one gives. We've seen BYU have good success against defensive teams. They beat up Iowa State pretty good in the tournament. The Iowa State, story of their season was very injured. But then Houston shut them down pretty good, which obviously Houston's a different animal, but can VCU kind of capture some of that magic and make that happen? I think they could. And then I like the way they match up against Wisconsin, honestly, in kind of a more physical game. I think they could contain John Tonje pretty well, assuming Wisconsin wins their first-round game, but I expect them to. So I think they could get the win there and find themselves in the Sweet 16. A little bit of that Shaka Smart run magic back. Any thoughts?
I kind of disagree with JP. I do feel like this is a pretty big Cinderella run. Well, I don't know. I just feel like I don't remember an 11 seed making it to the Sweet 16 and being like, yeah, but like I kind of expected them to be there. Like I do feel like an 11 seed getting out of the round of 32 is still pretty impressive. Because that does require, 2 upsets. So back to back.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a Cinderella, like I said, in the pure seeding standpoint, and what college it is, and it still would be impressive. I mean, I don't actually know. Can you look up what the line is for the BYU game?
Yeah, this was going to be my first point. Is you were talking that they're a popular upset pick. Vegas is all over it. BYU's only favored by 2.5.
Yeah,
as a 6 versus 11.
6 versus 11. Also, 6 seeds have not had great success in recent years. 11 seeds have honestly, the 6-11 has become almost more common than the 5-12 the past couple years.
The stat from ESPN. The last time all 4 6 seeds beat all 4 11 seeds in a single tournament was 2004.
Yeah.
21 years.
Dang.
I am a little worried that they may find themselves in a game where the shot just really isn't going down, and it doesn't matter how well they defend; they just aren't going to be able to score enough. But I mean, I have VCU making the Sweet 16 in my bracket. I like the pick a lot. The only worry really is BYU's just been very hot recently, and so just from that one game standpoint of like I could see BYU beating VCU so easily. I mean, they're favored, but I can see BYU making a run. And then I'm sitting there, and there's kind of a big hole punched in my bracket because I had BYU losing in the first round, and they just keep winning.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll have to see. I hope I'm right. I am notoriously terrible at picking brackets, so this probably will lose in the first round, but we'll see.
I think my other point was when you say, okay, well, they're 30th in KimPom, 30th team in the country, best team in the country being a Cinderella, is also kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, they're really not. So Bubba Cunningham, the chair of the committee that makes the bracket, was asked that if VCU didn't win their conference tournament, if they would have got in, and he said no, which actually kind of stuns me. I know like they honestly have tons of big non-conference wins. I think they beat one tournament team, and it was Colorado State, which is a good win for them, but it's not anything crazy. And I think they lost to a couple other tournament teams. So I get from that standpoint of resume metrics weren't great, but the predictive metrics are right there. So I would have been surprised if they got left out, even if they didn't win their conference tournament. I mean, maybe if they lost in the first round. But George Mason, the team they played in the finals, was a fringe bubble team too. So that wouldn't have really even been that bad of a loss. I think that would have been a misstep by the committee to leave them out.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts over the past couple of days. Other ones, obviously. And I feel like the committee did a worse job this year than they have done in recent years, just kind of overall. I feel like normally they do a pretty good job. There's maybe one or two small things wrong, but there seems to be a couple glaring misses from the committee this year.
Yeah, it was really weird how they devalued Louisville by making them an 8 seed, but then put UNC in. They devalued the ACC by making Louisville an 8 seed. Then they're the number 10 team in the country in the AP poll, and then still put UNC in. It was just that was a pretty big miss, I feel like.
Which I'd like to point out that UNC winning last night, and even if they keep winning, it doesn't necessarily validate the committee putting them in.
Correct.
I don't think very many people would have said there were 68 teams more talented or better than UNC. That wasn't really the question. Obviously, it was who deserves to be here, and I personally didn't think that they were one of the 68 teams that deserve to be there. But big win for them last night. All right, JP, you want to give us yours? I was very surprised to see yours.
Well, yeah.
I'm not sure how much you believe this in your heart, but
we're picking a Cinderella, so I went ahead and picked an actual Cinderella.
Okay, whatever.
I can't remember who this is. I made the graphic and I already forgot. So I'm about to be surprised.
It is the Lipscomb Bison out of the Atlantic Sun Conference. I talked about on Sunday how I hate this team. I do. They've knocked me out of the tournament in College Hoops 2K8. The Atlantic Sun tournament numerous times as I coached the Kennesaw State Owls, who just made the Sweet 16 earlier this week. By the way.
Are they still in? Have you played?
Yeah,
the
I haven't played the
Sweet
Sweet
16?
16 matchup.
What's the matchup?
Number one overall seed, Oregon.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
And you're the what seed? Did you say?
13 seed Kennesaw State.
A13.
There's a
seed or
Cinderella right there. A13.
A13,
Yeah.
not the 13.
Yes, correct. So yeah, Cinderella run for KSU. I got Lipscomb potentially making Cinderella run as well. The Bison limit turnovers. They are 350th in turnovers per game. For context, there were 364 teams in NCAA Division I basketball. That's 14th best. They shoot the three ball very, very well. They are 30th in the country in makes per game. Here's your big time stat, like the Maryland 12 or 5 players that scored 12 or more. All 5 of their starters have hit 33s this season. That goes guard, forward, center.
Their center has hit 33.
He has hit 30.
He's like that.
39 threes, if I'm not mistaken, this season.
Do you know what percentage he's shooting?
He's shooting at above 30%.
I'll
Oh,
look it up
wow.
while JP's still talking.
Yeah,
keep going, JP.
absolutely. Their first game, they'll play Iowa State. Obviously, Keyshawn Gilbert is out for the season, so he won't play in that game. Iowa State is a banged-up 3 seed, to say the least. The Cyclones, they rely heavily on their defense. They're top 75 in opponent points per game. They're also 12th in terms of how many turnovers they force per game. So that's a potential, downside. But as I mentioned, the Bison limit turnovers are the 14th best in terms of least amount of turnovers per game. The key factor in this game is going to be fouls. Liscombe plays an 8-man, and realistically, it's a 7-man rotation. And Iowa State is top 75 in the country at drawing fouls. So if Liscombe gets in foul trouble, they're in a tough spot. If they can avoid foul trouble, however, with the way that they shoot the 3 ball, they've got a chance to win this game for sure. They're right now a 14.5-point underdog to Iowa State, which is very doable when you consider that the month is March. Their second game, they're either going to play the School Up North or North Carolina. The Tar Heels are currently favored over the School Up North by 1.5, so let's just assume that the Tar Heels win. The Tar Heels don't force turnovers. They're bottom 80 in the country. That's going to maximize possessions for the Bison. The key factor in this game, though, is going to be the UNC guards. The North Carolina's top 4 scorers are all guards, and the Bison lack rim protection. Their best rim protector, Dylan Faulkner, has been out for the season since early January, so that's going to be a tough matchup there. If the guards can get by Liscombe and get to the rim, it's not necessarily a good matchup for the Bison. But then again, this is March, and if you're looking for a team to go on a run of the tournament, you're looking for a team that's going to shoot the 3 ball very well. Think of St. Peter's with Doug Eddert, except this Bison team, you could say, has 5 Doug Edderts. I think that's pretty substantial when you have 5 guys that shoot the 3 ball very well. And their best player, Jacob.
He's got a tough last name for
Very
sure.
tough last name. His last name starts with an O.
Jacob O.
Jacob O. You'll hear it pronounced here. They're the first, or actually the third game on Friday. He isn't even a big-time three-point shooter. He gets a lot of his scoring done in the paint and getting to the foul line. And so that's a big factor. When your leading scorer, just from a basketball perspective, is not the one that's shooting all the threes, now when you bring the double team to him, you leave the guys open that are good at shooting threes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key factor as well for the Bison when they play Iowa State, and if they get the chance to play North Carolina as well. So I've got the Bison. This is a true Cinderella, in my opinion. They're 82nd in KenPom, unlike 30th in KenPom, and the team that Sanders is going to pick, which is top 40 in KenPom, by the way. This is a true Cinderella, 14 seed. Give me the Bison to make a good run to the Sweet 16. In my actual bracket, I didn't even pick them. I picked Iowa State.
I was about
But
to ask.
if there's a case for a double-digit seed to make a St. Peter's Oakland level run, although Oakland lost to NC State,
They
give me
put
the
up a fight.
Bison.
They put up a fight.
Yeah, we should have changed the qualifier to be like an automatic qualifier, because I do kind of feel like both of ours were at larges.
Mine was automatic.
VCU.
qualified.
Yours,
Automatic
Technically, yours
qualified.
was too.
Yeah, both
Yeah.
of them.
yeah,
all
Now
three.
yours would have got in.
yeah, they were gonna.
Well,
get-
maybe.
If
The
they-
committee
Both of
might-
y'all's teams were bubble teams.
Yeah.
Yep. If they hadn't beat UC Irvine, R.I.P.
The qualifier for the question was double-digit seed to reach the Sweet 16.
Imagine if
But-
one of us had picked a 10 seed. At least we didn't pick a 10 seed. That would have been like embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, JP is definitely way more Cinderella-y. I mean,
I
so
agree.
much so that I don't even really have much to talk about here. You laid out a good case, but filling out my bracket, I was like Iowa State and just kind of moved on. So
Yeah, I don't think I hesitated.
no
for a
disrespect to
second.
the Bisons. Any other thoughts before we hop over to
Oh,
Sanders?
he shoots 33.7%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's made over 30, so that's a pretty
He hits
large
0.9
sample
a
size.
game. So
They hit 10 a game as a team, so
gotcha.
30 points right there.
Sanders, you kind of feel like you're selling out here with who your
No.
your
I'm not
Cinderella
selling out.
is.
So
I think you kind of are.
I don't know how much of
unfortunately.
this I've talked about on podcasts. I was a huge UC Irvine fan for like 3 days.
'Cause your crappy model liked them.
My model really liked them. My model had them at number 10 in the season in mid-January, number 10 in the country mid-January. So my model really liked them all season long. I was really cheering for them to get into the tournament so that I could pick them as an upset, like first round, really like ruffle some feathers just to mess with y'all. They lost
I
in
would
their
have vetoed them.
they lost in their they lost in their conference championship game, and did not make it as a at large. So UC San Diego beat them, and so I'm not selling out by picking UC San Diego. I'm picking the team that beat arguably the 10th best team in the country. That's what I'm doing.
I'd argue there is no argument for them.
Anyway, I have some actual.
Country.
So I picked UC San Diego. They are the 12 seed. I do actually have some other valid arguments. I do really like the matchup they have. Let me find. There we go. So UC San Diego is currently on a 15-game win streak. Michigan is 300. We talked about this in your breakdown during our 3-hour special, but Michigan is 334th in the country in
Yep.
turnovers, averaging over 14 a game, while UC San Diego ranks 14th in the country, averaging almost 10 steals per game.
Hayden Gray may feast this game.
I think it's a very bad matchup for Michigan there. I think that's a pretty good 12-5 pick, probably one of the worst 12-5 matchups for the 5 seed. I also think that UC San Diego did just beat UC Irvine, who averaged almost 13 turnovers a game, and they've scored 14 points off those turnovers. So you can see in their most recent game some execution of that game plan of just like forcing turnovers. And then I like their path because I have Yale picked to beat A&M.
Texas A&M erasure. That's crazy.
Yep, I have Yale picked to beat A&M, which I think creates one of the easiest paths for a 12 seed. So it's a 12-13 matchup, I believe.
Yeah.
My model has UC San Diego favored by 7 in that game. And while their points per game stats are comparable, their defensive ratings are not. 117 for Yale and 30th for UC San Diego. So offensively, you can compare them, but defensively, San Diego is just far better. And it's also a matchup that I just want to see. So John Pulakidis and Anawaniwa Tate-Jones are both top 35 in the country in points per game, both averaging almost 20. So it's also a top 5 name matchup I put in my notes. 2 point guards that could create a really fun matchup for us to watch in the round of 32.
That's fair. Shout out probably the best name in the tournament, Juslin Bodo. The center for High Point. Can't go wrong with that name.
He's not the chin guy, right? That's different.
No, I mean the
Okay.
chin guy, the mean mugger is. I actually have a video show after of him talking about it. He basically just like
I
I
saw
felt
the
lit.
video.
Like what can
saw
I
the
do?
video.
You know, I was feeling the moment.
I wish I had
Hit
that
the
jawline.
craziest
That
mean
was
mug
crazy.
ever. Yeah, we're talking about one of the guards for High Point in their conference tournament game. Hit an and one to give him the lead after being down double digits in the second half. And man, he just hits the craziest mean mug of all time. The chin just protrudes so far, it's crazy. Another very popular pick here. People really like this team. I argue they may like them more than like VCU.
Yeah, Vegas is all over this one as well. UC San Diego is only a 2.5 point dog as well in this 12-5 matchup. Not as much as the Colorado State-Memphis matchup.
Yeah.
Where Colorado State is favored. But this is one of the most popular picks in
Wait,
terms of...
Colorado State is the 12 seed and they're favored?
Yeah.
Yes, by 1.5 or 2.5.
I think it's
for
2.5.
Memphis.
Interesting.
I don't know what that was yesterday. The line could have moved.
But yeah, UC San Diego is one of those popular upset picks in the country. Now they would, I guess they'd still be a Cinderella run, making it to the Sweet 16. Any mid major, I feel like it should kind of feels that way.
At least the first time they do it.
But I think
We forgot this is their first year eligible for the
Yeah,
affiliate
this is their
tournament.
5th year as a D1 school, which is pretty cool that they're doing this so soon.
Yeah, that's instant Cinderella run right there. I don't care what seed you are.
Sure.
That's instant. Your first seed, they
We'll
were
give it
in
to you.
they were in Division 2.
I think it's a little too popular though.
Yeah, I mean, but I was doing my research and I saw Final Four run, and I was like, oh shoot, like they have experience. And I saw Division 2, and I was like, oh, never
Yeah,
mind,
no.
this is not.
I mean, that's still experience.
I am still very, very worried about the height of Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf, because UC San Diego just doesn't really have any competitive height in terms of like, no, they don't have any size to match up. Tate Jones is a great scorer. Can he score against 2 7-footers? We'll have to see. And also just like with how big Golden and Wolf are, I don't know. I wonder how much UC San Diego's pressure is really gonna affect them. I mean, they have turned the ball over a lot this year, especially Danny Wolf. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to see. But personally, I like Michigan in this matchup. I think UC San Diego is a good team. I just honestly don't think they got a great matchup, even though Michigan does turn the ball over.
I don't disagree with that.
We'll have to see. I think it's a good
I'm very
Cinderella
excited.
run. It
I
would be
think
very
these are
cool
all-
for them.
I think JP just disagrees so hard. He's just fighting to not say anything.
I mean, he can disagree all he wants. So he should have been more clear on what the assignment was.
Yeah, this
Sure.
was his idea. So we all completed the assignment effectively, I would say.
Watch both of us be wrong and Lipscomb finds his way into
Oh
the
my
Sweet
word.
16, and then
That'd be great.
we have to live with it.
There's no way. That's the most frustrating thing about like being
very
around
possible.
JP is like he's usually right, and I hate it so much because I come up with my hot takes, and he's like, "That's Sanders." Like, okay, whatever, and I'm like, "No," and then he's usually right about his hot takes. It's just very frustrating.
We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
We will.
But you've never been to an NBA game and built a 5-leg parlay 8 seconds before tip off and then hit it. So
Well, you had 0. Yeah,
I know.
Okay,
This
you're
was
giving me
this,
credit.
I was
sorry.
about to give back
I
credit for that.
apologize for.
I've made a lot of money off the NBA though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
this is
8
true.
seconds before tip off, 5-leg parlay.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of just luck.
Nope.
What's
We dialed
what's
in.
a coin flip? What's one
we
half
had reasoning
to
for all
the
of them.
power?
Anyway, that was a great moment. The
one-
only
one
parlay
out
I
of
ever cooked up.
32?
Well, that's not true. I'm 1 for 2 all the time, I guess, because my Super Bowl parlay failed miserably.
So we're talking
Wasn't that
about
like an
like
8-leg parlay?
a 3% chance parlay.
Yeah, it was like 7, I think.
7 leg. How many y'all had? Like 4.
Oh well, we had 2 different ones.
Oh, okay. Because I was talking to Jackson. He said
Yeah.
y'all had like 4 out of 6.
Because Anson had like 2. I think he had 3 free or something like that. So
Okay,
he gave me and Jackson and 1, and he made his own, and none of ours hit. All right, we'll go and hop into the next segment, which is winner chicken dinner.
Mhm.
My team of the week. I was gonna shout them out. You already mentioned them. One of my winner chicken dinners. This is your Kennesaw State. Owls. Congrats on
Appreciate it.
finally getting over the hump in is it
Yeah.
college basketball 08? Is that the title game?
2K08.
2KO8.
2K08.
It's been a big season. We had a lot of seniors coming in this year. Lars Agunye, Leland Spong, big leaders on the team, scoring a lot of
Yeah.
points. Big freshman recruit came in this year, Sylvester Bland. He was the 112th ranked recruit
That's a
in the
big get.
nation.
You.
And he is, led this team a lot this season. We scheduled a very, very favorable schedule. We played some very, very bad teams to try to boost the resume.
Just blew him out.
We destroyed them, and then we lost a few amount of games in conference play. But 2 big wins, one over West Virginia and one over Memphis,
Nice.
has us in the Sweet 16 playing number 1 overall seed Oregon.
What year is this? Like a rebuild?
Year
I assume?
5?
What
This
year?
is year 5. I'm
Yeah.
in year 5 currently. I have a whole big spreadsheet where I'm literally keeping track of my team every year, and then I keep track of their stats and everything.
Huge.
That's awesome.
That's really fun.
yeah,
Are
it's really
you?
cool.
Do you play the games or are you just simming?
I'm playing the game.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mm,
I don't
Um,
know what good kind of sim engine
yeah.
2K08
Oh, no,
has.
their
probably
sim
not
engine
great.
is terrible.
Yeah.
Their March Madness brackets, there's no madness.
Really?
Like literally, there's like maybe, I think in this tournament that I'm in, I am one of 3 first round upsets.
That's
Where
crazy.
the higher seed won, and those other 2 upsets were, one was a 9/8, and one was a 10/7.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
just barely.
that's-
There's just
tough.
0 madness in it
No
whatsoever.
variance.
You got to play every game in the tournament then,
Yeah.
like
if
all
I
63.
if I didn't play, I'd probably lose by 40.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm not playing all.
no, I'm saying you
63.
have to
No.
play every game up and down both sides of the bracket to
That'd
create
take
some
forever.
madness.
No way.
What is so sometimes I know that like people say, oh, if you play games, you can take any team and win it. Would you say the parity of like, if you're playing, are you like pretty confident you can win against anybody, or is it pretty bounced.
To make the Sweet 16, I had to play two of my best games I've probably played in my 5 years at Kennesaw State. We shot the ball really well. We forced a ton of turnovers, and the big thing was the other team just didn't hit a bunch of threes.
Yeah.
If they start hitting threes, it's really hard to keep up with them. They're playing that game 2K8 is a lot like playing Houston, where if you get down 5-7, it feels like you're down by 20 because it's so hard to play defense in that game. It's 2K8, so like the contesting shots and boxing out and all that such is not as good. The animations where a player will just dribble the ball through three of your players' bodies and get to the rim and then dunk on you. That never feels good. And
There's your
Yeah,
March
does sound
Madness.
great.
That's the March Madness.
I guess it's kind of hard to stop. So I play a 1-3-1 zone. It forces them to shoot some tough threes, and I get a lot of steals out of it too. So, but yeah, it's not an easy game by any means.
That was not on my bingo card. 2K8 breakdown on the show today.
Well, I had to give some love to my virtual team of the week or winner chicken dinner of the week. My in real life team of the week is UNC. Lucked out by sneaking into the tournament as the last team in. I'm sure they can't be happier about it. And then they beat San Diego State by 27 last night. RJ Davis has 26, hits all 6 of his threes, and they're officially in the tournament in terms of they're not, in Dayton. They've made it out of that. They don't have to fly home. They get to play the school up north. Huge week for them. I'm sure their fans are happy. I don't really think anyone else in the country is happy.
Well, I mean, they won, but my biggest thing, San Diego State was a quad 2 win, by the way. So they still
haven't.
They're still
yeah,
1-13
They haven't beat the accusations
in
for
quad
sure.
1.
Did y'all see the tweet that when it was reported they were having plane trouble, someone said it was a quad 1 plane?
Yeah.
I saw that.
That was funny.
And now they're favored against the school up north. So, as a betting man, I think there's a ton of value in school up north money line.
Fair.
On Friday
Because I'm assuming that will be a quad 1.
or on Thursday, I should say. Yeah, that would
Definitely.
be a big quad 1 game.
So
Who is their one quad 1 is UCLA? That's their one quad 1 win.
Yes.
yeah, I mean, huge week for them. I think kind of when they lost to Duke and they couldn't get done on the lane violation, it was like, dang, what a crazy way for someone's season to end, for RJ Davis's career to end. I guess they could have gone to the NIT or something like that, but I could also see them turning it down. And here they are. So huge week for them.
Yeah, I mean they took advantage of the opportunity that was given to them. They made a big statement, quad 2 win or not. It kind of looked like the team that we kind of have expected them to be all year, and that their metrics say they are. Like they're 30th in KenPom. That's better than Mississippi State, even with their quad 1 record.
Are they 30th?
Yeah, they're 30th.
What's VCU then?
VCU's 31st.
Oh, dang.
The
Awkward.
latest. I guess this was
They
at
probably updated after I made the notes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah,
I bet that their win against
Their win last night
last
bumped them
night.
up.
Yeah, bumped them up.
probably.
I'm just
Good stuff.
devastated because I was working the baseball game yesterday and I missed the Alabama State game, and so that was like tough because JP was texting in our group chat the whole time. Like, I was getting excited because I was like, is Alabama State going to beat Auburn? Like, is that is Auburn scared? Like, is the world on notice? So I missed that game, and then I go over to hang out with Jack and watch the UNC game. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good game. We got like
No.
North Carolina, who like shouldn't have made it in. You got San Diego State, who like I thought was like decent, and it was just not good.
We got to watch Bucks Warriors instead.
Yep. So tough loss for the Warriors.
Yeah,
right?
Hornets got a big win.
Warriors won.
Warriors won.
Yeah.
Where,
did.
I don't know where I was.
Without
Um,
Steph,
Without Steph, got to watch Jimmy Butler
they're
make
now
Kevin Porter Jr. make the worst and one 3-point foul I think I've ever seen.
Okay, I do remember
That
that.
was-
That was rough
hurt
because
my eyes.
we looked away and it was like a 18-point game, and then we looked back as like a 3-point game.
Well, it wasn't that at half the Bucks were down pretty big. And so I think we turned it off at halftime, just went to a different game, and when we came back, the Bucks
We
actually
went to
had
watch
the lead.
NIT. We watched
Yeah.
NIT basketball.
The Bucks had the lead, and then
that's how
Golden
the NBA
State
works now.
Yep, Golden State came out at the start of the fourth quarter hot and got it done. So shout out to them. Yeah, and then we can hop into my cock of the walk or my player of the week. Not going to be NBA every time, but I currently am 2 for 2 on NBA players. Quentin Grimes, since getting traded to the 76ers from the Mavs, arguably the worst trade the Mavs made at the deadline.
No.
They might have traded Luka, but this one's not looking great either. But yeah, he's averaging 32, 5 and 5 with 2 steals a game over his last 5 games. He's just lighting it up, and I get it.
Where did he get traded to?
76ers.
Okay.
76ers are beat up. Paul George out for the season. Joel Embiid out for the season. Tyrese Maxey's hurt right now. He has free reign. They want to lose because they need their pick badly, so they need to be bottom 6. So low stakes basketball, but he is hooping, hitting big shots, hitting tough shots. They're double teaming him. It just does not matter. He's on a heater.
Yeah, Quentin Grimes made me a lot of money over the past week and a half. I've been taking his overs because of that factor of there's just who else is going to shoot.
Yep.
In the NBA, it's different to college basketball. Someone has to score because these NBA teams even the worst teams aren't going to put up 85 points a game. They're still going to put up 105 points a game. So someone has to score. And Quentin Grimes just happens to be the number one option, and he's taking advantage of that opportunity. But these are NBA talented players. All of them are terrific scorers, shooters, all of that. So someone's going to score. Quentin Grimes is the guy scoring a bunch this week.
Taking good advantage of it. Pretty efficient, too. I don't have him written down, but it's not like he's just, scoring 30 points on 30 shots or anything like that. He's putting up good numbers. But your point about how good NBA players are, I think leads us pretty well into our question of the week, which I'll let Sanders take over from there because he's the one that cooks up these questions. So.
Yeah, so the question of the week, JP, you have the NC State roster, and I don't have my notes in the graphic, so we can just kind of walk through it. You have to determine how many NBA players are there, starters, that you could put that single player on the NC State roster and win a national championship. So you're trying to determine, is it the top 5 players in the league? Is it the top 50? Is it all 150 starters that one player by himself is going to change the team that much? So let's kind of talk that through. I'm curious. What's really weird is I came up with this question, and I don't think I saw it anywhere. Maybe I'm really tripping. And then like a week ago, I started seeing it on TikToks and YouTube Shorts, and now my brain is really confused.
I think it's just a question that kind of cycles around every couple March Madnesses because it is a question it's a good question, but it's not one that's like crazy creative or crazy hard to cook up. So I mean, we talked about. I think I talked about it with you, but like Alex Caruso got asked the question.
Yeah.
And he said 30 to 40 NBA guys. The question was different. He said on the worst 16 seed. So they were getting put on a worse team than this NC State team.
Yeah. This NC State team's not great.
No, but I
definitely better than the worst.
I was say I reckon it's at least more athletic, and better than I don't know SIU Edwardsville or something.
Do you
like
think
that.
He said 30 to 40 NBA players could take the worst 16 seed?
Which would be the worst 16 seed would be who just lost last night, St. Francis.
Yeah.
So I guess Alabama State. So who? I guess did we want to go with that question or NC State?
Yeah, we're going.
Let's go with NC State. I'm just more shocked.
He said.
Maybe we can do 2 parts. Because can we break that down first? Because that feels way too many players.
See, I want to trust him because he plays in the NBA, but also he may be biased because of that. He's also Aggie legend, Alex Caruso, I might add. Grew up in College Station.
Hit the 12 points in 45 seconds.
He was part of that team.
Part of that team.
Yeah, I would argue. I mean, he played a key role in it. Daniel House hit the biggest shots in that comeback.
Yeah, I just recognize him because he's still in the NBA, and so I'm reminded. I watched that game, the last minute of that game, probably twice.
It comes up every March.
Yeah, I watch it at least twice a year.
Yeah.
Like November, I'm like, remember that time? And then I'll just go back and watch it.
I was probably 12 at the time. Yeah, I think it was exactly 12. I was watching my next door neighbor's house, and I was pissed because in my eyes it was like we have no business losing this team. And then we make the insane comeback, and we go to overtime, and me and my friend just like started screaming, ran out the door, ran all the way down the street, ran around the cul-de-sac, ran back, just screaming, sat down on the couch, watched overtime. It was bliss. I don't know. I almost want to agree with him, 30 to 40. It's hard to give an exact number without sitting here and just walking through every NBA player.
Yeah.
But he basically said any skilled big would be able to get it done, just because their sheer size and defensive impact.
Yeah.
There's no defensive 3 seconds in college,
Mm-hmm.
which is huge. They can literally, I mean, think about Wimby. Just like he can just stand in the paint and basically be like, you can try and drive and score on me, or you can just rain threes, and I'm going to bet that you aren't going to hit enough threes.
Yeah.
And he's going to get every rebound. So
He doesn't get every rebound because
He's gonna
some
get-
just bounce the wrong way.
yeah, he's going to
He's
get
gonna
a
get
higher
probably
percentage.
a lot. But I don't know. That seems a little high to me as well in terms of being on a 16 seed. Not
I'm
the NC
actually
State
starting
one.
to agree with him. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of the 30 number seems about right.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's just so hard. I mean, Giannis could do it. Jokic could do it.
LeBron.
I take LeBron or Luka to do it. Just big physical
Bronny?
guards. Yeah.
Bronny? Question mark?
I don't. Bronny couldn't do it at UCLA, so
USC.
USC. Thank you. Good catch.
USC, Texas.
He is a lot better than he was now than he was on the USC team. I'd argue, but still, obviously, no.
Yeah, that's
I was gonna say the 24 All Stars.
Okay.
All of those guys are big time
and
prolific.
this is the NC
scorers
State question. So we're back on track.
in the NBA.
Okay.
So I got the 24 All Stars. And then I've got roughly 12 to 15 former All Stars.
Okay.
That are still good.
Yeah.
So Trey Young.
You think Trae Young could do it?
Yeah, Trey Young
Okay.
could do it on NC State.
That's what. Yeah, on NC State probably. I'm just a little worried about he's just gonna draw double teams, right?
Sure.
And so it's not, and he's gonna be able to score out of the double teams. He's that good, and he's gonna be able to distribute out of the double teams. And I trust some of NC State players enough that if Trae Young is drawing that much gravity, they're gonna find ways to score. I'm just worried about his kind of endurance. Drawing doubles like that is a lot.
I look at it, they're playing in the ACC.
Okay.
We had a down year of the ACC. I think you put Trey Young on NC State, and they are the second, third, or fourth best team in the ACC. That is going to get you, well, I mean, in Louisville's case, it got you an 8 seed. But maybe you get lucky, like Clemson's case, get you a 5 or a 6 seed. And then I think he makes, I think he could make a run all the way to the national championship based off that seeding.
The scary thing this year is Duke. And like, how good of a defender do you think Cooper Flagg is right now?
Cooper
And
Flagg is
how
not
good they are.
guarding Trey Young.
He's not guarding Trae Young, but there are some players I think he could limit enough that they're, instead of them scoring like, I don't know, 40, they may score like 30.
Well, that's half
I mean,
the points you need to win.
There's still 10 less though. I mean, and then
Fair.
who's going to guard all of Duke's players? I don't know. It's a question to ask. I mean, we heard all the rumors about Cooper Flagg played against NBA players in a closed gym and like, got his own and shut down.
Mean, on video, he got it. He did very well against the Olympic roster.
That is true. He did.
And you were saying earlier, like them winning the championship and him right off into the sunset. Hasn't he made comments about him coming back for another year?
He's not coming back.
There's no way. If I'm John Shire, I don't know
Unless
if I can
he-
let him come back.
Who's John Shire?
Duke's coach.
Okay. Why?
It just feels like malpractice. Like, I just like, buddy, I love you. Thank you for what you've done for this team. Go get your bag.
Yeah, and they already they had the Boozer twins coming in.
Yeah, they're gonna reload.
They're gonna reload.
It's
That's
it's
fair.
not like it's a
He
we're
could
never gonna have
he
a
could lose
prospect
the
that just
Boozer
grace
twins.
the door.
Yeah, they could lose the Boozer twins if Flagg were to come back as well.
That's tough.
Yeah, I mean the only downside to going to the NBA is the possibility to play for the Wizards. That's about it.
But I saw someone say that staying another year is not going to fix that because it's just going to be the
Yeah,
Wizards
it's
again.
really not. It's
Yes.
gonna be another bad team down there. What you gotta do is you gotta tell Adam Silver to rig the lottery for
Well-
you, and he can end up a Spur.
The NBA has the unfortunate circumstance compared to like the NFL. I think MLB's the same in this way, is they don't have a good way of creating parity.
Yeah.
And so a team that just doesn't have this, if they don't hit on a superstar, even if they do, LaMelo Ball, like that doesn't mean your team's going to be good. And definitely doesn't mean your team's going to be good right away. We've seen with the Pistons this year, they've been able to build a little bit. But in the NFL, you're able to, the fourth, you place fourth in your division. You play the fourth place teams from the other divisions, and then you play two other divisions. You play your division. So you kind of rig at least 3 or 4 games where you're playing bad
Yeah.
teams, and that's where you can see runs like Washington that went from fourth to second, and Houston where they went from fourth to first the year prior. The NBA just doesn't have that.
No.
Is it
So-
because players are because there's only 5 players on the field as opposed to 11, and each player is more impactful, that you have to hit on like superstars in order?
Well,
to create
in the NBA, they
No one wants to go play at certain
it's the
franchises.
It's the scheduling specifically. You play everybody in your conference. You play everybody in your division 4 times. And then you usually play everybody in your conference 4 times. And so and everybody's basically playing the same schedule. Like the Celtics and the Wizards schedule is no different. The Celtics and the Nets schedule is no different whatsoever. The only difference is when the games are being played. So the Celtics, being an infinitely better team than the Nets, they're playing the same schedule. They're going to have an infinitely better record year over year until something changes.
But
A player
that's
gets
what
hurt.
puts the Nets at the top of the draft to get better talented players.
Yeah,
to
but then
create
you
that.
have
One guy doesn't like flip the whole
then
script.
you have a draft like last year's draft where you have Zachary Richichet as the number 1 overall pick, and he's a
Good
role
player.
player.
But he's not. I guess what you're saying is kind of right. Like you have to hit on a Wemby or a LeBron for one player to really like flip your franchise that far and that fast.
Yeah, and even the Spurs haven't flipped their franchise
Correct.
yet in 2 years under
The
Wemby.
difference is if you're a small market team, the only way to draw superstars and draw other stars is to have someone so magnetic. Like Wemby, people want to play with Wemby. De'Aaron Fox wanted to get traded to San Antonio to play with Wemby. So even if the Spurs, it hasn't always been the most desirable free agency destination, all of a sudden it is because of Wemby. But even just your kind of classic all-star doesn't have that same draw. Bradley Beal on the Wizards did not draw anyone to want to play at the
Mhm.
Wizards.
Does
Yeah.
the NBA have like salary caps and stuff like the NFL?
They do.
Yeah.
Okay. But the
And
MLB
they're,
does.
they're actually more strict than the NFL is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
With their aprons, where
The aprons are brutal.
if you go above a certain like if you go above the salary cap, you're paying the owner itself has to pay luxury tax on it.
Dang.
yeah.
You go a certain amount above the salary cap, you start losing draft picks,
Was there
or draft picks start freezing, where you
was
can't
the
trade them.
rumor about the Mavs having to potentially forfeit games because they couldn't roster a team?
That's potentially possible, but
Okay.
we've seen there specifically there was an NBA game played where there were only
7.
7, and 2 of them got hurt, and only 5 players played in the game.
Dang.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the players fouled out. This is it was the Lakers specifically. Robert Sacre fouled out, and in the NBA, if you're down to 5 players and a player fouls out, every foul after that last foul is a technical foul. So they continue to play the game, and Robert Sacre picked up another foul, and he got a technical foul, and you can't get ejected. Like if
Yeah.
he picks up 2 technical fouls, you can't get ejected or anything. They have to play with 5 players. So if they couldn't field 5 players, then they're screwed. Then they would have to forfeit a game.
It's they don't do it like Alabama, Minnesota, where it's a 3v5.
That was awesome.
The NBA is very anti-tanking right now. I mean, they're investigating the 76ers for how they've handled things. They just fined the Jazz $100K for messing with their availability reports, so they could try and lose games, not play their good players. Which the Jazz are probably like $100K. Who cares? They would try and get the Mavs to play it like if at all possible, because they just the Mavs, just might as well just be bad at this point. And the NBA doesn't want teams doing that. They want teams to stay competitive.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got way off topic. My final number is probably gonna be 40. I think I can get behind that on
Yeah.
NC State's team, around 40.
Yeah, we even talked about it in 5 minutes, but I feel like 40 to 50 feels like a good number.
I'm going to say 35.
Interesting. All right.
He had to get specific with it. I-
32 and a half.
That's all we have. We'll be back Sunday night. Y'all will hear from us Monday morning. But we're gonna reconvene Sunday night and wrap up the March Madness weekend
Mhm.
and do probably a look ahead of the next week and stuff. What stood out to us as the last games are wrapping up. So tune in for that, and we can't wait to see y'all next time.